Ariadne Sol's hands trembled as she applied red lipstick in her father's failing bakery bathroom. Tomorrow was the deadline. $50,000 or the Valerius family would burn everything down. The borrowed red dress hugged her curves as she stepped into Il Palazzo, Viridia's most exclusive nightclub where criminals conducted business. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, and enough wealth and violence to suffocate her. Lysander Valerius lounged in his booth, drunk, loud, the Don's reckless younger brother. Above him in the VIP section sat Cassian Valerius himself, the Ice King. Perfectly still, dangerously bored, his dark eyes sweeping the room like a predator. Ariadne forced herself to approach Lysander. I need one more week. Just 7 days. No. Lysander leaned forward, alcohol thick on his breath. Get on your knees. Beg properly and maybe I'll consider it. His friends erupted in laughter. Something inside Ariadne snapped. 5 years of fear, her dying father, this monster playing with lives. Her hand moved before she could think. The slap echoed like a gunshot. The club went silent. Lysander's head snapped back, blood on his lip, murder in his eyes. Don't touch her. The voice came from above, cold and precise. Cassian Valerius stood at the VIP railing, his presence filling the entire space. Zephyr, clean up my brother. He's embarrassing himself. Cassian's dark eyes locked onto Ariadne. Bring the girl to me. Guards appeared at her sides, guiding her upstairs. This was it. She was dead. Up close, Cassian was devastating. Over 6 feet of controlled power, sharp features designed to break hearts and bones equally. Sit, he commanded. Ariadne sat because her legs were giving out. You slapped my brother, Cassian said. He deserved it. Almost a smile flickered across his face. He did. He studied her. You're the bakery girl. Ariadne Sol. Your mother's debt, your father's cancer, your tuition you can't afford. Each fact was a knife. Tomorrow my brother burns down the bakery. The next day your father's medical care stops. Then you die. Yes, Ariadne whispered. I'm making you an offer. Refuse and you leave, tomorrow comes. Accept and your father's debt clears, his medical care is paid for, his bakery protected. Cassian leaned forward. You become my fiancée. Not real, a contract. I need a wife for a political merger. 6 months, maybe a year. You have fire. You proved that tonight. A fake engagement? You'll live in my home, attend events, learn my world. When it ends, you get enough money to finish your degree and start whatever life you want. His expression remained unreadable. Or tomorrow comes. It wasn't a choice. I accept. Cassian nodded and made a call. The bakery on Mercado Street. Security detail tonight. Paulo Sol is under my protection. Clear his debt. Medical transfer to Eastridge Memorial, private room, Dr. Chin. Just like that. 5 years of crushing debt erased. Before we continue, Cassian said, standing, let me ask you, where exactly are you from? Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and comment below where you're watching from. The Valerius estate was a glass and steel fortress on the cliffs overlooking Viridia. Beautiful. Lethal. A prison. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Maria, Cassian's housekeeper and former etiquette instructor, drilled Ariadne relentlessly. Posture, conversation, wine glasses, designer clothes that cost more than her yearly income. Security briefings with Zephyr, Cassian's massive head of security. You scream, you run, you survive. Mr. Valerius handles the rest. Every evening at 8, dinner with Cassian in his study. He'd quiz her on Viridia's criminal families while working on his computers. The Russo family? Marco Russo, 57, controls Eastern shipping. Daughter Isabella is being positioned to take over. Harvard-educated, more ruthless than her father. Cassian nodded. The merger dinner is in 2 weeks. They'll test you immediately. How? Insults disguised as compliments. Questions to make you slip. They'll prove you're not worthy. He looked at her. You'll prove them wrong. Days fell into patterns. Morning training. Afternoon research. Evening dinners where conversation was always business, never personal. Ariadne learned Cassian was brilliant, running his empire like a corporation. Also completely isolated. No friends, no family except the brother who disgusted him, no one he trusted. What must it be like to live in a prison of your own making? Then Cassian announced, tonight we practice being engaged. The dinner is in 4 days. We need to be comfortable with physical contact. The contract said, I'm not going to molest you, Ariadne, but we need to hold hands without you shaking. Dance without you looking like a hostage. He was right. They'd barely touched since she arrived. Classical music filled the study. Cassian held out his hand. We start with a waltz. His skin was warm, his grip firm. He pulled her close, not inappropriately but close enough to smell his cologne, feel his heat. They danced. Ariadne stepped on his feet, tensed up, thought too much. But Cassian was patient, guiding her through the steps until her body remembered. Better. You're thinking too much. I'm dancing with a Mafia don who could kill me. I'd use my whole hand. Give you the respect you deserve. Was that a joke? Ariadne laughed before she could stop herself, and something warm flickered in those cold eyes. They danced until Ariadne's fear melted into something dangerous. Moving in Cassian's arms, following his lead, it was intoxicating. When the music stopped, they stood close. His hand on her waist, hers on his shoulder. His eyes had darkened. You did well, he said quietly. Neither moved. Then Cassian stepped back. The dinner is Friday. Wear the blue dress. The Ice King again. Distant. Controlled. Untouchable. But Ariadne had felt his heartbeat. Seen his jaw tighten when she laughed. Cassian Valerius wasn't as cold as he pretended. And that terrified her. The Russo estate was all marble columns and old money. Cars worth more than houses lined the driveway. Remember, Cassian said as they arrived, you're my equal, not my accessory. The moment they entered, his entire demeanor changed, the cold distance melting into warmth. He smiled at her, kept her hand in his. It was an act, but God, he was convincing. Marco Russo approached, arms spread. Cassian. And this must be the famous Ariadne. May I introduce my fiancée, Ariadne Sol? Marco kissed her hand. Charming. Though I was surprised you'd finally chosen someone, Cassian. Why choose when I can have both? Cassian's arm slid around Ariadne's waist, possessive and protective. Isabella Russo glided over in a red dress, tall, striking, dangerous. Architecture? How fascinating. Where did you study? Viridia University, Ariadne said, chin lifted. Oh, how? Local. I prefer practical. I wanted to study under Professor Chin. He's revolutionizing sustainable urban design. Isabella's eyes flickered. Professor Chin was David Chen's cousin, part of the pharmaceutical family. Though I imagine marrying Cassian is even more practical for someone in your position, Isabella said. The direct insult. Ariadne felt Cassian tense, but she squeezed his hand. I've got this. Actually, Cassian proposed to me. I was quite content before he disrupted it with his persistence. She looked up at him adoringly. He can be very persuasive. Cassian brushed a kiss against her temple. You made me work for it. Worth every moment. Isabella's smile froze. Dinner was a battlefield. 10 courses while conversation flowed like poisoned wine. Ruth Chin, tiny with steel gray hair and hawk eyes, presided at the head. What does your family do, dear? Ruth asked. My father is a baker. He makes the best olive bread in Viridia. My mother was a nurse before she passed. How quaint, Isabella murmured. I think so. There's something beautiful about creating things people need. Ariadne paused. Of course, not everyone understands creation. Some only understand acquisition. Ruth Chen's lips quirked into almost a smile. A philosopher. How refreshing. Ariadne deflected insults, turned questions back, slowly earned nods of approval. Even Isabella went quiet, reassessing. Then, during after-dinner drinks in the garden, Lysander appeared. He looked terrible, fading bruise on his cheek, bloodshot eyes, rumpled suit. Drunk. Well. The happy couple. He stumbled toward them. How domestic. Go home, Lysander, Cassian said, voice dropping dangerously. Tell me, brother, does she slap you too? Several guests went quiet, watching. Leave. Now. Or what? You'll choose her over your own blood. Lysander laughed bitterly. She's nothing, Cassian. A bakery girl playing dress-up. Everyone knows it. Cassian stepped forward, close enough only they could hear. Listen carefully. Ariadne is under my protection. That means she's worth more than you, your opinions, your pathetic jealousy. If you ever disrespect her again, I will cut you off completely. No money. No protection. No family name. You'll be nobody. Lysander's face went white. You wouldn't? Test me. Please. Lysander stumbled backward and fled. The garden pretended they hadn't watched, but Ariadne saw the looks. Cassian had publicly chosen her over his brother. Are you all right? He asked. I'm fine. Thank you. Don't thank me for doing the bare minimum. But as they left, Ariadne couldn't shake the feeling this wasn't over. She'd seen Lysander's eyes. That wasn't defeat. That was the promise of revenge. 3 days later, Ariadne woke to wrong silence. The estate was never this quiet. She grabbed the robe Maria had left and crept to her door. The hallway was empty. No guards. No staff. Nothing. Her phone was dead. The landline, dead. The security monitors in the hallway, all black screens. Someone had cut them off completely. Ariadne's heart hammered as she moved toward Cassian's wing. She found him in his study, standing at the windows with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it takes. Find him. He turned, saw her, and his expression darkened. Ariadne, get back to? The window exploded. Cassian moved faster than she'd ever seen, tackling her to the ground as bullets shredded the air above them. Glass rained down. The world became noise and chaos and terror. Then silence. Cassian was on top of her, his body a shield, his breathing ragged in her ear. Are you hit? No. No, I'm fine. He pulled back just enough to check her face, his hands on her cheeks. For one moment the Ice King was gone. There was only fear in his eyes, raw, genuine fear for her. Then it vanished, replaced by cold fury. Zephyr! Cassian shouted. The door burst open and his head of security appeared, gun drawn. Get her to the safe room. Now. What about you? I'm ending this. Cassian looked at Ariadne one more time. Trust me. I will keep you safe. Zephyr hauled her up and practically carried her through hidden passages she didn't know existed. The safe room was deep in the estate's basement. Reinforced steel, monitors showing every angle, weapons mounted on walls. What's happening? Ariadne demanded. Lysander, Zephyr said grimly. He hired the Marchetti crew. They're hitting the estate. How many? Doesn't matter. They're all dead men. Through the monitors, Ariadne watched Cassian transform into something terrifying. He moved through his estate like a ghost, taking down attackers with brutal efficiency. No wasted movement. No hesitation. This was the real Cassian Valerius, not the cold businessman but the apex predator who'd built an empire on violence. Within 20 minutes it was over. Bodies littered the grounds. Sirens wailed in the distance, police that Cassian owned. And in the garden, Cassian stood over a kneeling Lysander, gun pressed to his brother's temple. Ariadne couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw Lysander begging, crying, pleading for his life. She saw Cassian's finger tighten on the trigger. No, Ariadne whispered. She turned to Zephyr. Let me out. Miss Sol, Mr. Valerius said. Now. Zephyr hesitated, then unlocked the door. Ariadne ran through the estate, her bare feet cutting on broken glass, her robe flying behind her. She burst into the garden just as Cassian's finger was about to pull the trigger. Cassian, don't. He froze. Turned to look at her with eyes that barely seemed human. He tried to kill you, Cassian said, his voice empty. He hired men to murder you in your sleep. I know. Ariadne walked forward slowly, carefully, like approaching a wild animal. And he deserves to die. But not by your hand. Not like this. Why do you care? Because if you do this, you prove him right. Ariadne stopped a few feet away. You prove that I've turned you into something worse. That choosing me destroyed your family. He destroyed himself. Then let the consequences be legal. You own half the police force and all the judges. He'll rot in prison for attempted murder. Ariadne held his gaze. But if you kill him, you'll carry it forever. And I can't, her voice broke, I can't be the reason you lose the last piece of your humanity. For a long moment, Cassian stood there, gun still pressed to his brother's head. Then, slowly he lowered it. Get him out of my sight, Cassian told Zephyr, who'd appeared with backup. Federal prison. Maximum security. I don't care what it costs. Guards dragged away the sobbing Lysander. Cassian holstered his gun and finally looked at Ariadne, really looked at her. You're bleeding. She glanced down. Her feet were cut up from the glass, leaving bloody footprints across the garden stones. Without a word, Cassian swept her into his arms and carried her back into the house. Not to the medical wing, to his private bathroom, where he set her on the counter and carefully cleaned each cut with steady hands. You could have died tonight, he said quietly. Because of me. Because I made you a target. You also saved my life, Ariadne countered. Multiple times. That doesn't make us even. I'm not keeping score, Cassian. His hand stilled on her ankle. Why did you stop me? Lysander would have killed you without hesitation. Because somewhere in the last month I stopped seeing you as the Ice King. Ariadne's voice was soft. I started seeing the man who dances patiently with terrible students, who visits his housekeeper's grandchildren in the hospital, who reads architectural journals because I mentioned I liked them. Cassian looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. The contract, he said. 6 months. No touching. Business arrangement. I know. I'm breaking it. His hand slid up her calf, slow and deliberate. Tell me to stop. Ariadne should. This was dangerous. Stupid. Crossing a line they couldn't uncross. Instead, she reached down and cupped his face. Don't stop. Cassian rose to his full height, stepping between her legs, his hands finding her waist. If we do this, it's real. I don't do halfway, Ariadne. You're mine or you're not. Possessive much? You have no idea. His thumb brushed her lip. Last chance to run. I'm not running. Cassian kissed her and the world caught fire. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was hungry, desperate, months of tension exploding between them. His hands tangled in her hair. Hers clawed at his shirt. The bathroom counter was cold against her thighs, but Cassian was burning heat everywhere he touched. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Cassian rested his forehead against hers. The merger is complete, he said. The contract terms are fulfilled. You're free to leave. Ariadne's heart stopped. What? You can walk away. Take the money. Go back to your life. His voice was rough. Or you can stay. Not because of debt or contracts or obligations. Because you want to. And if I stay? Then you're mine. My real fiancée. Eventually my real wife. His dark eyes burned into hers. My equal in everything. My partner. The woman who stopped me from becoming a monster. Ariadne thought about her old life. The bakery. Her studies. The safe, predictable future she'd once wanted. Then she thought about the man in front of her, complicated, dangerous, and somehow hers. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Cassian's smile was devastating. Good. Because I wasn't letting you leave anyway. Possessive and honest. That's new. You wanted the real me. He kissed her again, slower this time. Careful what you wish for. The wedding was small, by Valerius standards, which meant only 200 guests. Ariadne wore white and her mother's lipstick. Cassian wore black and couldn't stop staring at her like she was the only person in the world. Her father walked her down the aisle, healthy and crying. The debt was a distant memory. The bakery was thriving with Cassian's investment. And Ariadne had just finished her degree, already fielding offers from top architecture firms. As Cassian slid the ring onto her finger, a real one this time, not for show, she thought about that night at Il Palazzo. The slap that changed everything. I love you, Cassian whispered as they were pronounced husband and wife. My fierce, terrifying, perfect wife. I love you too, Ariadne said. My possessive, complicated, occasionally criminal husband. He laughed, a real laugh that made his eyes crinkle, and kissed her like they weren't surrounded by mafia bosses and politicians and criminals in fancy suits. Somewhere in the crowd, Isabella Russo raised her glass in acknowledgement. Ruth Chin actually smiled. Marco Russo looked vaguely concerned, but that was his default expression. The bakery girl had become the Don's queen. And she'd never been happier. As they left the reception, Cassian pulled her close and murmured in her ear, Ready for the honeymoon? Where are we going? Anywhere you want. The world is yours. Ariadne looked up at the man who'd started as her captor and became her choice. Surprise me. Always, Cassian promised. And she knew he would. For the rest of their dangerous, beautiful, complicated life together. The end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. What should our next Mafia story be about? Drop your suggestions below.